So yesterday we had been here and we have gone through introductory section of this history of consciousness. We have seen the brief about the life journey of Sherbindo, and then after that we establish our perspective about this, that how to do or the way I conducted the explorations in the integral yoga to come out with these two books. So we will just take a look at yesterday's recap. So today we are at the second part. Okay, so before that, we'll just continue to take a recap of this, what we did yesterday. So we saw the life sketch of Sriaurobindo, and then we established why we required the need of explorations for this, writing the books on those integral yoga to come out with these two books. Then there was a comparison with the traditional yoga and integral yoga, how they are different, and what way integral yoga is offering the things which is the ultimate what we saw yesterday. And we also see these how the science findings are useful in integral yoga to understand the integral yoga, so that we can correlate, we can analyze the writings of Sri Aurobindo in a better way. After that, we did some explorations in chakras and see what is the importance of chakra and how we are with those writings in interior yoga takes us through that, the importance of chakras, and what is the opening of why the opening of chakra is important for getting into the yoga. So we established our new perspective yesterday, so establishing the relation between the frequency and the consciousness, although they are not equal, but understanding of the frequency and the wave frequency behaves and we utilize them is also useful for understanding the consciousness and the various text writings in integral yoga. So this is the summary of yesterday's that we found in the integral yoga that Sri Aurobindo has given. The chakra are in the subtle body and they import only in integral yoga, and without chakra opening one cannot receive the higher consciousness and remains in ordinary consciousness. So, however, integral yoga chakras are not open forcefully, but by the pressure of higher consciousness, by the concentration, aspiration, rejection, and the surrender. So, these are the methods what Sri Aurobindo has given. And it is not by the forceful opening of the chakra, the way the traditional yoga has given the various methods, but by this methods of integral yoga, we get it open, or the chakras are open automatically by the force. So one do not have to strive for that, but one has to do the only sadhana as per these methods. So we also see in the chakras comparable with frequencies, as I said, okay, and we established the new perspective, and we found that chakras behaves like antenna in a subtle body, receiving the higher consciousness, after which it decodes and sends the signal to brain and then further to the mind to get the awareness about the higher worlds. We also saw brief about psychic being, although we will come up with the psychic being in great detail in the next part. Okay. So, but the psychic being acts like a tuning receiver, which will receive the divine consciousness, especially the divine consciousness, the dynamic consciousness, what we call as a supermind. So, it is the receiver for that. And once it receives and it's connected, then there is opening to the higher consciousness, and one can receive the truth knowledge and the input from the higher consciousness and what is we call as coming forward. That once it comes forward, then it can do all those things. So in this process, as we are connected or the psychic being comes forward, then it grows slowly, resonates around that, and then it is sufficiently able or it is sufficiently grown to impact the outer consciousness, the mind, vital, physical, to bring the transformation. So that is the whole yoga of integral yoga what Sri Aurobindo has given, and that is what has been consolidated and is presented to you in this integration, in these explorations. Now today we are coming to the second part. The part two is about the diving into the consciousness further. So we will explore the consciousness. We'll look into the various planes of consciousness. Then we'll see the supermind. What is the importance of supermind? What are the gradations of supermind? And after that, we will look into the mind consciousness and how the neuroscience is also trying to find out the how brain creates the consciousness and how integral yoga tackles that issue and resolving the problem which neuroscience cannot resolve. Then we will also look at the creation of the universe, the Big Bang theory, what science has presented, which was already there way before Big Bang appeared or Big Bang was presented by scientists. So that's also we'll take a look at all these things. So coming back to our exploration, so we'll just start with our journey in the consciousness exploration. So what's Sri has given in the integral yoga text is that consciousness is a fundamental thing. So this is the most fundamental thing. As you know that science assumes something fundamentals like mass, time or length. So all those things they consider as fundamental things. But consciousness is the fundamental thing, what this is, and it is a fundamental thing in existence. It is the energy, it is the action, and movement of this consciousness that creates the entire universe and all that in it. So that is the case of whole this manifestation. So what is this consciousness? So we will try to understand more in about the consciousness, and then we'll see how integral yoga help us to understand this about this consciousness and various aspects of it. So consciousness is that by which we become aware of anything. So this is our general understanding that we are conscious being because we know everything around us, what is happening to us, or in the physical world. So we get to know about this only when we are conscious. Okay, in the when we are sleeping or when we are unconscious under some medicine, we do not get that thing. Okay, so this is what is a fundamental definition that we are aware of anything. But divine consciousness is not only aware, but it also knows and efforts. So that is effects. So this is what Sri has put up. It has got two parts. The consciousness itself has got two parts. That is awareness of self and everything in surrounding and force and power acting. So this is what Sri defines as consciousness. And secondly, he says that consciousness is that which has got the right will and the force, which is necessary for effective consciousness and its action. So the wording of Sri are very important when we are looking into this text. Okay, we have to understand, we have to go behind these words and see and imagine that what he is trying to say and tell us. So without this contemplation, we won't be able to understand the whole yoga or the whole of his writing to the depth. Now, when we are open to the inner consciousness, that is what is the inner opening, we get connected with the higher consciousness directly and experience the divine within us. Through that experience, the light and force of the divine we can experience. So that is the now there are different states of consciousness. So we'll just take a look at it. So consciousness, we call it in the waking state when we are awake and experience the material universe around us, which is dominated by the physical mind. Another is the sleep state where we get into the sleep, and it is the state where we are connected to the supramental plane of knowledge and truth in the sleep state. The dream state is one in which we doesn't get the concrete experience like the one we get in the physical, but we get the glimpse of that into our dreams. And in the dream state, one get these experiences from the subtle life planes and the subtle mind plane. The last is the Turiya state. This is a state where one is conscious of pure self-existence and the divine within us. So this is the Turiya state when the yogis are into these states, they experience the divine, the pure self and divine within inside. So this is also called the conscious samadhi, and but we are not in direct relations and this consciousness, and unless and until we do the conscious yoga, this state is not achieved. These are the different types of consciousness. What we can classify the consciousness into different types like inner consciousness, outer consciousness. Then we have the higher and lower consciousness. We have the mind, physical, and the body consciousness. So this is how we can differentiate with the consciousness in a different way. The outer consciousness is one through which we become aware of our outer material world. So this is the general consciousness we possess in our waking state. And this is through this consciousness, we are aware about everything surrounding us. We are aware, we are conscious, and we have different kind of emotions, feelings, and we have the intelligence awake to analyze, plan, read. So all the activity what we did in the outer world are all because of this outer consciousness. But the issue with this consciousness is that it is only limited information received through our senses. Because whatever senses we have as the input for this consciousness are our five senses, and through which we get the inputs, and based on that only it works. Now, we do have the inner consciousness, and it is behind our frontal consciousness, and it is much larger part of the consciousness. So, what we see the consciousness outside or the outer consciousness, this is like iceberg that which is the much larger, wider and broader consciousness. But it is well inside and below the surface, and we are generally not aware about it. And it can be known only through the occult knowledge when we gain through yoga. This is a subtle consciousness, and it can get broader and connect with the higher worlds to get larger, deeper experience and the knowledge of the higher consciousness. The inner consciousness refers to different consciousness like inner mind, inner vital, inner physical, and the inner psychic being. So this is how the inner consciousness is further differentiated, and we have the different types of we can call them as this physical, vital, inner mind, or psychic being. This consciousness is also known as the subliminal self. The inner self, what we have, is also called the inconscient or the subliminal self. The inner mind is this inner mind is much more powerful than the surface mind, and the inner mind is more connected with the universal process and the higher consciousness. So, if we compare with the outer mind or the outer consciousness, this is much more powerful. So, what we say in the called inner self is the subliminal self, which is the hidden consciousness, and the materialistic or the scientists call it as an inconscient, whereas the psychic science call it as a subliminal self. So this inner self is much profound, more powerful, and far greater than the surface consciousness itself. Then we also have the material consciousness, which is mostly subconscious, but also has some conscious part. So this is how Sri Aurobindo defines the material consciousness. So material consciousness is something like a mechanical and repeats the same unintelligent and unenlightened movements. So like we also observe that when we are driving the vehicle, we are many times drive it by just by this or practice. So it is doing the mechanical task of repeating the same thing again and again because it has acquired that knowledge. So this is the conscious part of this material consciousness which was there. The material consciousness is not willing to change and receive the or obey the higher light and the force higher force. That is the characteristics that it is very stubborn and doesn't want to change. Uh, or even if it is willing to change, it is not unable to do so. Or sometimes even if it is able to do so, it will turn those action into again the mechanical aspect or the mechanical thing. So that's how it works. So in short, the material consciousness is very obscure, stupid, indolence, and full of ignorance and inertia, darkness, or the slowness of the tamas. So these are the things what is our material consciousness. Then we do have the physical consciousness. That is, we have the physical body and the individual physical consciousness which is associated to that. This physical consciousness is the part of the universal physical consciousness of nature and it follows that part. Our center being is the one which is directly dealing with all the external object and the movements. So it expresses itself in the physical world with the support of this individual physical consciousness. This individual physical consciousness receives our powers receives the powers and influence from the vital or the mind plane and makes the formations in its own plane. Thus, there is a physical mind and the vital physical part of the physical plane. So, these are the concept little bit of difficult to understand actually, but we have to go and visualize the thing that what he is trying to say in all these things. That physical consciousness is associated or influenced by the vital and the mind plane. So, like we have the mind plane, we have the vital plane. They are impacting on the physical consciousness, and then with that we are acting actually. So with this, when the physical consciousness is merging or interacting with that, so we get the mixing of the two, that is vital mind or vital mind proper or vital proper and the nervous being. So this is how this entire system of physical consciousness and the associated mind or vital consciousness works together to give us the actual working in our physical body. So this physical consciousness is full of inertia. It doesn't want to move on its own. However, it has a habit of getting moved by any force. So if there is some force, like we have the physical consciousness, it can be moved by certain force. But to remove, one needs to remove the inertia of the physical consciousness, which can be done by bringing in contact with the right higher forces. So unless and until we get connected with the higher consciousness, bring that light into this physical consciousness, it is not possible to change this physical consciousness and remove all the characteristics of its tamas or second part. Now, this is another interesting part of our consciousness, which is Sri Aurobindo called it as environmental consciousness, and commonly we know it as aura. So, as we know that our consciousness, this is also extends surrounding atmosphere, like an extension of ourself in the universal nature. This is the environmental consciousness using which we communicate with the universal forces. So this aura is surrounding any body, physical body or the material body, and it is also surrounding the human body and as well as the other physical material world bodies, like even the stone or the trees or any other things also have their own auras. So this aura is known as a biofield in the science. Science called this as a biofield, whereas we call it as a aura in spirituality. Now this aura acts like a shield around us, and it is the shield which is protecting us from the surrounding forces, the vital forces which are always existence and trying to attack us. Like for example, what we get when we get ill, it is the actual the outer vital forces, the bad forces which are generated by the or consolidated in the form of the bacteria or the viruses, and they are trying to enter our body. The aura is the one which protects us. When there is weakness of the aura, then that time we get attacked. So, what we observe is that these external forces, thought, emotions, which are always surrounding, so they can enter into our aura, and if we are not conscious of this environmental self, we can get catch, and we are affected by this. So it is so we to prevent all these things, we have to reject all these things before it enters into the body. So that is how the aura plays an important role in protecting us from all these illnesses. So if there is to get rid of anything, one throws this outside. Okay, so what's there in the sense that when we want to get rid of any of our anger or any of our thoughts, okay, we are trying to reject it and throw it outside. But however, it doesn't go totally outside. It remains inside the aura or it remains around the environmental consciousness or environment around us, and then it tries to re-enter again or attack again unless and until it is removed or it is thrown out of that. So these things always remain there and try to wait for some opportunity to enter again inside us. So that is why we have to be very cautious about this while we are doing this sadhana, so that we can reject totally, and from this aura also doesn't contain that part of us. So this is something interesting for science has also done in this field. Okay, so science has developed the using the GD with technology, they have developed the camera, And this camera is able to plot the aura of the body. So this is how the output of the aura is shown actually. Then when this is measured with this, so this is the biwell camera, and we have to put the fingers inside, and that is captured by this GDV technique. And this is how it is seen. So this kind of aura detection is very useful for chakra tuning. So chakras can be plotted when we get these things decoded by this biwell camera, and the chakra tuning can be done with the help of this. So if we measure these chakras placement before and after the meditation, then you will find this difference, that how the chakras gets aligned with the when we put ourselves into the meditation or the techniques what are known to us. Another important thing what science has detected is about this. They have found that this aura is also able to detect the illnesses which are entering into the body even 6 months prior to they will appear actually into the body. So this is the prior detection of these illnesses to various organs of the body. That is what they have detected, and that is what they have researched, and that's how this aura, the Curlian photography, is used today by the scientist. Now we'll get into the further research into the consciousness. We'll see what is the play of consciousness and how it is playing into the world. So as they say, it is a fundamental thing, which is it is energy, it is in the action and in the movement of consciousness that creates everything around us. So in integral yoga, Sri Aurobindo has given the large of his writing goes for this consciousness, and he has decoded the entire mystery of this universe through this by giving his writing into the various books what he has written. And he calls this word as the play of consciousness only, because everything is a consciousness, right from highest level of Satchidananda to the lowest level of inconscient. It is all the game of consciousness, or which creates the different planes of consciousness, and there are this entire manifestations happen. So consciousness is an inherent and involved in being, and it is concealed inside the things. It emerges out of an apparent unconscious and organize itself into the individual life. This is what he has stated, or he has revealed, that the consciousness is the one which has come out of the inconscient and created the life in this world. The surface consciousness is only the consciousness known to us in the waking state. And inside us, as we have seen, that there are much larger consciousness, which are the like our inner mind, inner being, mind, inner matter, inner physical, and the psychic being, which we are not aware, but we are aware about what comes out from there. We are not directly aware of it in our normal waking state, but the things which are coming from this inner consciousness as input to us are entering into our mind, and that's how we get the input from these higher things. Our outer inner being is hidden within, and it is separated from this inner consciousness by the kind of wall of obscurity. This is what he has observed, and he has said that unless this wall of obscurity is removed between the outer and inner being, we are not aware about it. So only with the practice of yoga is this can be done, and we can get connected with the inner or the inmost being, and after that, the integral yoga of transformation can be started. Now, Sri Aurobindo has given the secret of the manifestation, which is the involution of the consciousness. The entire universe has been manifested because of the involution of the higher consciousness, which is already involved into the lower consciousness of mind, vital, and the physical or the inconscient. And this inner consciousness, this higher consciousness which is involved, is coming out of this, and that is what we see as the evolution. So involution is the secret of this manifestation. And we have seen that there are different planes of consciousness, and this planes of consciousness, there are associated words of the associated subtle words, and this can be connected when these consciousnesses are open. The how this happens actually, the higher planes of consciousness, when they precipitate, their influence on the lower planes happens, and in response, there is a lower plane reacting to it, and thus the lower planes manifest in themselves something of this superior power and action. So this is how the higher consciousness impact precipitate the lower planes, and then in response to that, the mind, vital or the physical react to it, and they acquire something superior or higher of it. The evolution is the reverse process in which the life, the consciousness which has got into subconscious gets evolved. That is how the life has got evolved out of the matter and mind out of the living form. So life is coming out of the unconscious or the matter, and then mind is coming out of the living form. So that is how the evolution has reached to this current stage of humanity. So this evolution is possible because already the higher consciousness is evolved, which is evolving further now. The higher level of consciousness exerts the pressure. So this is how it is acts actually. So when the higher level of consciousness exerts the pressure on the lower levels, the life gets evolved out of the material world due to this pressure from the vital plane. Whereas mind has evolved into the response to the pressure of the mental plane. So this is what is the secret of how the life has come out of the material world and how the mental world has come out of the higher, the mental plane. Now the stage has reached where this supramental plane has to act on this mind plane so that the supermind can be manifested into this world so that it can act for the further act of transformation of this entire universe. So there are two moments how so we have to explain that how this happens actually. So one is the upward and the other is the downward movement of the consciousness, which creates this universe. So in the upward moment, the vital rises to join with the higher consciousness and gets itself in light and with the force of higher consciousness and get evolved. So this is what is the upward movement. Whereas in the downward moment, when the higher consciousness comes down, vital remains silent, tranquilized or in the pure state, and it starts receiving that, it interacts with that, it opens to that, and then get transformed. So both this movement of upward and downward contributes to the evolution. So the secret of what is consciousness is stated here in these writings. So we will see how the consciousness work, and that is what is the secret that what is this consciousness is all about. So what's here in those tells us in integral yoga that when we place our consciousness, when we place it in the ego, we are associated and identified with the ego. So just look at the statements very carefully because that is what is the actual consciousness is. When consciousness is placed in the mind, it is identified with the mind and its activities, and we are living in the mental world. When consciousness puts its stress outside, we are living externally. So this is what we generally do in our waking state. We are putting out our consciousness outside, like you are watching right now this presentation. Your entire consciousness is in the external world and you are living there. So you are identified or your consciousness is identified with that externally and you are living externally at that moment. So at that moment, you are unaware of the inner aspect of this consciousness, that is inner mind, inner vital, or the inmost psychic being. Now, when we put the consciousness inside, that instead of looking outside, when we are looking inside us, so our consciousness also goes inside and put the centralizing stress there. So it is putting the stress, it is putting the pressure there, and with the intense of this pressure, we get to know about our inner being, inner mind, inner vital, and the inmost psychic being. So that is how is the whole secret of this, that what consciousness is. So these are the further explorations about the consciousness based on the writings in integral yoga, and in the letters of yoga there is lot of literature is given, lot of text is available there, and this has been taken, and in the books you will find that things in a more elaborative or more in the larger content, and everything is explained with the proper or the simple understanding, and then also analyze with the scientific way of understanding. So the consciousness is a fundamental thing. That is what is in these writings he is telling us, that consciousness is the fundamental thing which has created this universe and everything in it. The consciousness is energy, and the movement of this energy creates the universe and all living or the non-living thing in it. In human being, the consciousness formulates itself as a physical, vital, mental, or the psychic, and all are mixed in external being, and their real states is hidden in the inner being. One can know it only after being aware of the inner being. This is another findings in the integral yoga, letters of yoga. So what Sri Aurobindo is describing is that science is conscious as the phenomenon created by some working out of brain. But he is clearly telling us that it is not the brain which is creating the consciousness, but contrary to that, brain is an instrument which is only working based on the instruction of the consciousness. So consciousness uses the brain to give us the awareness or understanding of the outer phenomenon. So what we see that it is only the phenomenon of consciousness what brain understands, and it is not the consciousness that it is creating or it is understanding. Because it is an instrument, it cannot understand that. That is a simple thing. Then there are many more ranges of consciousness, like we see the mental, there are vital, physical, spiritual, psychic, etc. And when goes into this consciousness, one becomes aware about all these ranges of consciousness. And divine is this described as a Satchitananda, and it is this consciousness that creates the universe and everything in it. So this is what is written, or this is what is given by Sri Aurobindo in his letters of yoga in one of his writing to the disciple, that what is the consciousness and how it is different from the brain or the understanding of the consciousness of the science. Now, the consciousness is the one which is aware of the things, while the energy is the force that does the things. So, Sri Aurobindo is describing this now as what consciousness and how it is different, okay, or the different aspect of the consciousness. So, consciousness is the one which is aware of the things, and energy is the force that put in action, which does the thing. So, this is the differentiation between the consciousness and the energy of that, which is part of the consciousness. So, consciousness is also energy, it is awareness also, it is energy also. The consciousness is made up of awareness, that is awareness of self, things and forces, and the conscious power which act and exhibit it in the right way. So this is very important findings, that what consciousness is. So it is made up of the awareness of all these things and the conscious power which act and exhibit it in the right way. So this right way is very important, because consciousness is made up of awareness and the conscious power, but it needs the will and the force to execute it, or to do the right action. And that is what is the consciousness. So it is only the consciousness, and if there is no if it is only the consciousness and no will, one cannot do the work. Or if it is only the will force, but no right awareness, the things are not done in the right way. So this is how the consciousness works. So we will move to the next part now. So we have seen that there are different consciousness. So now these different consciousness are now further graded into the different planes of consciousness. That is, the same consciousness has been differentiated based on the different powers which has got. So this is how it is represented, that there is a single universal consciousness with the different gradations, but all are superimposed and mixed in each other. So what is surrounding us is all of this existing, superimposed, mixed, and we are not aware because we do not have the instrument developed for that. This we have seen yesterday's discussion, that in the integral yoga model, what Sriyam has given, that there are 7 planes like Satchidananda on the upper hemisphere, and then mind, vital matter in the lower hemisphere, with supermind as in between the two. These are further differentiated, or we have the different planes of consciousness which are associated with this. These are the different grades, like Brahman is the Satchidananda, so it is the Brahman consciousness. Supermind, which we call also known as the dynamic consciousness, is the further gradations of it are higher mind, illumined mind, intuitive mind, overmind, and supermind. The mind is also having the different gradations, like inner mind, mind proper, or mind. The vital also has got its own ranges, like lower vital, middle vital, higher vital, vital mind, and vital. So look at this. When the mind is mixing with this, you are getting vital mind. When the and vital itself has got the differentiation. Same way in the physical has got the physical mind. Like mind is mixing with the physical, so we have got the physical mind. Vital is mixing, so we have got the vital physical. And we have this subtle physical, the part of the physical, then subconscious and conscious. So these are all the ranges of the consciousness when the same higher consciousness has got into involution and got into subconscious or inconscient to separate itself. Terunga has given this, there are two systems of consciousness existing in our body or surrounding us. So there is a vertical system of consciousness, what we have seen just now, that these planes of consciousness from Satchidananda to inconscient or nascent. This is the vertical system. So we have already differentiated and seen that what are the ranges of this vertical consciousness system. Parallelly, there is another system which is he called as this concentric system of consciousness, which is around us, and we have the concentric system consisting of the outer being and the inner being and the inmost being. So this is what is that concentric system around us. So inmost is the psychic being. Then we have the inner mind, vital mind. We have the inner vital. We have the inner physical, and outside we have the outer mind or the outer vital and the outer physical. So this is the concentric system what Srinath has described. So both the system vertical as well as the concentric are existing, and we are acting as per the inputs or the forces of those planes of consciousness. The inner being, also known as our subliminal self, which is behind the outer being and directly in contact with the universal consciousness and the universal forces, and so it gets awareness directly. So this is very important because the inner being is the one which is aware of everything. So this is the psychic being which is in connection with the higher universal consciousness, and through that it gets awareness directly. The outer being we have consisting of the mind, the mental, the lifestyle, the vital, and the body. So this is our mind, outer being, and each of these consciousness are different and distinct, but they are intermixed, and that's how we have the mixing of these. As we see that vital or mind mixing with the physical, we get the mixing of these two. Sridhar describes that there are many layers of minds below from the crown chakra and the head to the throat chakra. So he has given us specifically that the mind consciousness itself has got the different layers. There is a consciousness at the top of the head, which is communicating with the higher consciousness above the head. So this is visible when we have crown chakra open. Then there is a consciousness between the eyebrow and the Agya chakra, which is the center of thought, sight, and will, also known as the third eye. There is a consciousness in the throat, that is the Vishuddhi chakra, where there is another center of consciousness, which is the externalizing mind. So whatever is our thinking, whatever is our mind or whatever is the thought, we are externalizing it using this chakra or the externalizing mind. Then there is a mind proper or the buddhi, which is also further subdivided into distinct categories. Like there is externalizing mind. So this externalizing mind does the externalizing of the mental thoughts, emotions, and the will into the physical world. So this is the mind using which we are expressing ourselves. We have the dynamic mind which does the planning and the will. And there is a thinking mind which does the thinking activity also called the mind proper. So this is how the entire mind consciousness has its own various parts of gradations and they act accordingly to give us the awareness about this mental level. In the concentric system, in the outer being, we have the vital consciousness. This vital consciousness is further, we have the higher vital and the lower vital. And the layers of hard vitals ranges from the shoulders to the navel and presides over the heart center and the emotional being. Whereas the lower vital is down below the navel and it has got the several layers from the bottom of the spine downwards. It consists of the layers of the physical consciousness proper and the layer of material. So this is the so complex system what Surendra described about the vital mind we have seen, and this is about the physical that we have the subtle physical, higher vital, middle vital, and lower vital, and the mental physical. There is a subtle physical plane also, which is near to the physical and is almost similar to it, but it is subtle in nature and we are not able to see because it is in subtle, but it differs in the conditions and the things from physical. Like it has got the freedom, plasticity, intensity, power, color, wide and manifold play. So this subtle physical is more plastic and free from your physical because physical is you have to take efforts and you have to move the things, whereas subtle physical is free to move or it is spread out. There is subconscious and inconscious also, so which are below the physical consciousness and it constitutes the nether being below the feet. And everything on earth is based on this inconscient, which is also an evolution of the consciousness, but at the lowest level, which is the evolution of the consciousness start the inconscious also has the many layers of like subconscious is the subconscious is like an anti-chamber of the inconscient. So each of these is very important actually to understand that what is subconscious, what is inconscient, and where it lies and how they are acting and how the emotions start from all these things. In the concentric system, we have seen that there is an inner being, which is our subliminal self, which is behind the outer being. The outer being receives consciously the outer touches and get the knowledge about the things indirectly through the outer mind and the senses, whereas the inner mind or the inner being is more powerful, wide, and directly in contact with the universal consciousness, and it can get awareness or the knowledge directly from that. So the inner mind is connected with the universal mind. The inner vital is directly connected in touch with the universal life forces, and inner physical is connected with the universal physical forces. So that is how the inner being is connected with the entire outer universal consciousness. So we have seen this that in the planes of consciousness that when the mind interacts with the vital or physical, we are getting the mix of that. So this is what is referred to as the what we call the sensor sense mind is nothing but the intersection of the mind with the physical. The emotional mind is the intersection of the mind with the vital, and the mind proper is the thought mind through which we are thinking. So the sales mind is the mind which is mixed with the characteristics of the physical consciousness, and the physical mind communicates with the physical vital to and makes use of that using the sense mind. So we receive the signals from the physical senses in the brain, and then they are sent to the buddhi, which is the part of the thought mind. The physical mind receives back from the buddhi, and then the idea and the will are sent it to the brain and to the organs of the sensation and for the action. So this is how the entire system works within us. That whatever we are receiving through the physical senses is received inside the buddhi, sent to the received in the brain through our nerves. That is what science also observes that we get this connected through that. We get this is sent to the buddhi, which is the part of the thought mind. Then the physical mind receives back it from the buddhi, creates the idea and the will and sends it back to the brain and to the organs. And then the brain receives that and then sends the commands to the organs to act. So this is how the brain functions and our entire system functions. This emotional mind is the vital mind, which is the part of the mind intermixed and dominated by the impulses, desires, and the feelings of the vital nature. The reasoning of the vital mind is pseudo reasoning, as it is also by the vital impulses, emotions, and provide the reasonable, rational explanations and justifications for the impulses and desires of the vital. So the vital mind and the is it is the intermixing of and it is dominated by the impulses what we see or what we get because of our desires and the feelings of the vital nature surrounding us. So this is in short when we summarize all this our what's described about the consciousness. So we have those different states of the consciousness, we have the different types of the consciousness, then we have the higher consciousness or the Brahman consciousness. It's separated in these three planes or which driven, which is nothing but three in one. Then we have the higher consciousness from supermind, lower mind, illumined mind, intuitive mind, all these things. We have the inner consciousness, we have the outer consciousness, we have the material consciousness, further subdivided, then we have the physical consciousness, we have the environmental consciousness, and we have the psychic being inside us. And another important part, there is a self, which is also a consciousness directly connected with the Brahman consciousness. So this is in short, or at a glance, the complete overview of the consciousness, what we observe in the integral yoga. Now we will move on to the next exploration, that is the exploration on the supermind and its gradation. What we observe is that the universe is made up of the consciousness and it is a connected reality with the different levels and the gradation. So the consciousness is only a one consciousness, but there are different gradations of the consciousness. Same consciousness separating itself into different layers. This is like a prism what we see. When the light passes through this prism, we see the different colors which are part of this white sunlight and we can separate or differentiate between them. The same way the consciousness is there, that there is a single consciousness, but there are different gradations of consciousness. And if we open ourselves, we are aware about that through our chakras open and our psychic being open, then in that case we are able to see all those gradations. Today we will describe the supermind or the supramental consciousness as the fundamental truth consciousness. He says that it is the dynamic consciousness, it is the plane below the Satchidananda, and it is the plane which is the truth consciousness, knowing entire thing, aware of everything, and knowledge of everything. And it is the plane which has created or manifested this universe. So it is the responsible for the manifestation and creation of the universe. We have seen earlier, yesterday's discussion that traditional yoga doesn't describe this plane of supermind. It stops at the Satchitananda, and that is how it was puzzling that how the universe was created. But Srinanda gave us the direction and input about there are two aspects of Satchitananda or the Brahman consciousness. One is the Satchitananda, which is the stable consciousness. Okay, and beyond the time and space, whereas whereas the supermind is the consciousness, which is the dynamic consciousness acting in this world and creating this manifestation what we see all around us. So Sri Aurobindo described this as it is the intermediary power of ineffable Brahman, which is the bridge between the Brahman and the individual evolutionary soul. Now this is again important. So what See, is saying that supermind is the one which can only connect you to the Brahman consciousness because it is the bridge between this ineffable Brahman and individual soul. Individual soul is also part of this supermind itself because it has got the capability to receive that consciousness, open to that, receive the light and energy, and then evolve it and receive the that to act on the outer lower consciousness. So Aurobindo further describes that the supermind, although it is there, but this is not directly residing in our mind, but there are multiple gradations of the supermind as it comes down towards the mind. These are all connected and one has to gradually rise into the mind. So we have the different gradations of the supermind, what we have described, like we have the higher mind, which is the luminous thought mind, we called it. It is much more powerful than our mind. It is knowledgeable and it's a self-revealed eternal wisdom and not knowledge acquired from any external sources or the senses. Then there is the illumined mind, which is the grade above the higher mind, which is the vision of a spiritual light with the clarity of spiritual intelligence that provides an either intense glow, splendor, and illumination of the supreme spirit. So illumined mind is the one which is very powerful than the higher mind, and it has got the dynamic inner force and power to understand. Above that is the intuitive mind, which utilizes its intuition, inspiration, and its swift rivalry of vision and its luminous insight and discrimination to make more truthful decisions and action. So intuitive mind is more powerful because it is directly getting the intuition about the truth. Above that is the overmind, which is also known as the abode of the cosmic gods. So all the gods and goddesses, what we know in our traditional yoga systems resides here, and they are the ones who are ruling this world. So those are the part of the overmind, but they are much below the supermind. And above the overmind, we have the supermind. So these are all the gradations of the supermind. And when one gets open to your cyclic being, one has to go through all these things to connect with the supermind. And then from there to the Brahman or the connecting with that, we can get the light of the Brahman or the transformation of the lower material world. This is the action of the supermind, how it acts. So supermind is the one which is the living and active power of the infinite universal spirit. And it acts largely and totally in the individual as a conscious and self-knowing spiritual being. So it is only the supermind which takes part in the manifestation, and that is why it is able to do the transformation because it is involved into this manifestation and creation of the universe. The action of supermind is the development is to manifest and organize the supreme divine consciousness. So that is what is the action of supermind. for the development and manifestation. So how does it act? It acts in the individual and the nature consciously and with its own truth knowledge. So supermind is the one which has got the truth knowledge. Like we are acquiring the knowledge about surrounding through our senses and we get to know about some inputs about all the material world around us. But the supermind is the one which is having the truth knowledge. It knows about it from outside, inside, about everything, and which is the property of inherent to it. The transformation of mind like body is done by the power of the supermind, whereas the Satchitananda consciousness supports impartially everything. So everything behind everything is the Satchitananda static consciousness, and the transformation is possible when the power of supermind acts on our mind body vital through the psychic being when it is open. So how does this happen? So that is the key of this sadhana or this integral yoga, that when is connected with the self. We have seen that self is there above our consciousness, above our mind, okay, which is the static consciousness of Satchitananda. So when one is connected with that, one can experience that Satchitananda, and one can reach to this stage where the ascent of supramental and the descent of supermind is possible through that. Sri Aurobindo has given further this method of or the process of transformation, that how the transformation happens actually. So he has given us the two processes, that is ascent and descent of consciousness for the transformation. So the first transformation happens from mind to intuitive mind. As we have seen that there are gradations, and then if when we have to transform, when we have to transcend it, so the first transformation happens from mind to intuitive mind. So from mind consciousness, one goes into illumined mind, then higher mind, and then into the intuitive consciousness. So in this ascent, the infusion of these higher levels takes place. So this is how it happens. And there is a transformation. So infusion means all those higher levels are getting mixed with the mind, and the mind is getting transformed or getting converted. The next transformation is from intuitive to overmind transformation, which as one goes beyond the intuition to the overmind height, there is a further transformation happening, and one experiences everything from the overmind consciousness, that is overmind thoughts, sight, will, feeling, sensation, and the play of forces and the contact. So as one gets transformed to the overmind, one gets aware about all these things. After that, there is overmind to supermind transformation, and the supramental is the final conversion happening. And once it is done, then the supermind can get inside and act on for the transformation of our universe. Now we'll get into a little bit about the mind consciousness and see that what is this mind consciousness all about. So science is also exploring this thing parallelly, as I said that, and they are trying to understand the consciousness, and neuroscience is studying and functioning this through this system. So science has found that this our all input senses use the signals, and there are billions of 86 billions of neurons inside the brain. There are microtubules inside the brain around that. There is protein fluid around the microtubules, and all these things contribute to the consciousness evolution. That is what they are trying to give. They are trying to state, but that doesn't answer the that how we get the awareness and how we get the binding of all the our inputs. So this is how neuroscience is trying to do its research. So this is the brain computer interface, which is the system developed, okay, by putting various electrode around your head. And they have seen that when they measure the signals at various electrodes, they found the different kinds of signals generated by the inputs which are getting inside your brain. So this is all they are trying to do the research, and they found that or they thought that the neurons are responsible and the microneurons are responsible for creating the consciousness. They have found these different level signals generated because of the outer inputs. They found that these beta waves are generated, alpha waves are generated, like when you are in the awakened conditions, when we have in stress, anger, all these inputs. So that time the beta waves are generated or you are in that waking state consciousness, which is around 13 to 30 hertz. So they have measured this as in this range of frequencies, these signals are generated inside your brain. Same way they have further seen that when we go to the when we go into little meditation, close eyes, keep yourself silent, reduce the mental activity. That time you are into the alpha state, having the 8 to 12 hertz of frequency generated here. And then there is a theta wave generation, which is 4 to 7 hertz, and further the delta wave generation, which is 0.5 to 3 hertz, which when you are into deeper meditation and in the advanced meditation. Now they have digged all these things and find out this is how they found that the different signals are generated. But further discussion and further research, they have also found that there are gamma waves which are above 30 and up in the range of 30 to 100 hertz. And this happens when one is in the very, very advanced meditation and intense focus or the transcendental meditation type of technique. Now look at this, that the frequencies are reducing as you go from your waking to the meditation level. Whereas when you are into the deeper meditation, suddenly it is boosting. It is going above the 30 hertz and 100, getting into the range of 100 hertz. How this is possible actually? When you are reducing and doing the meditation, it is reducing. Whereas when you are into deeper meditation, how it is possible that you are getting this frequency? So this is a mystery for the science, okay, or contrary to what they are finding. But with the knowledge of integral yoga, we can understand all these things. We know that beyond this, when one is in the deeper or the transcendental, we have access to higher consciousness, and this higher consciousness generates the things inside your brain, and that's how these gamma waves are generated. So this is how integral yoga contribute to the understanding of neuroscience, that this is how the gamma waves can be understood in the transcendental meditation. So the further explorations in mind consciousness in the integral yoga we'll see. So in the later on yoga, there is a lot of things still in the I said about this, and there is a lot of research is conducted. We can understand this. So with the new perspective, we can analyze all these things. So what we find in this writing is that Sri Aurobindo explains that mind cannot understand the functioning of the consciousness because mind is an instrument of the consciousness. The way we found that brain is the instrument of the mind consciousness, same way mind is also instrument of the higher consciousness, and it cannot understand that. The ordinary mind is governed by the vital desires and it is occupied by the thoughts and its own formations. To receive the higher consciousness, it must remain calm and quiet. So this is what is said in this text. So this is the important condition. Now, when we, with our knowledge of yesterday's discussion and the new perspective, what we put forward, that receiver also receives the signal when it is when all other unwanted signals are suppressed, like spurious harmonics are suppressed, and you are able to detect this desired signal to the when it is at the proper amplitude. That time only this receiver is able to decode, and we can get the knowledge about the audio, video, whatever it is. Okay. So the same way the mind is an also instrument like receiver, which receives when your all other desired, undesired vibrations are suppressed. That is what we have to make the mind calm and quiet to receive those things. So this we already seen that how the way the we have seen the various ranges of frequency. The consciousness also has got the different ranges and the gradations of the consciousness. Here we are finding that Sri described that brain is an instrument for mind consciousness, and human brain is only the shaping and interpreting the consciousness and cannot create or explain it. The consciousness is the power of awareness of self and it thinks and has a dynamic and creative energy, whereas it has got its own actions, it remains abstain from the reactions, and it can answer to the forces or also create input to the forces from itself. So this is all the characteristics of the consciousness what he has put forward. Now we'll come to another interesting findings of what the creation of the universe. The scientist has stated the theory of Big Bang, where they say that the Big Bang is from the universe is created from the Big Bang, and they have given this theory in 1960. Whereas the same thing has been there, what Sri Aurobindo has put in the Savitri much before it was given in the by the scientist. So it was given in 1960 only that the Big Bang model, and they accepted it that saying that the universe is originated from something smaller than even the nucleus of an atom, which they call it a singularity. So after the Big Bang, it got expanded, then cooled down, and finally we arrived at the physical universe, what we see, the creation of various galaxies and the uh, various planets and the Earth, and then the evolution has happened, creating the life on the Earth. So that is what, in short, the Big Bang theory is talking about. But they didn't find the secret of it. That is what is the singularity and what was before that. Whereas in Savitri, Sri has given a detailed illustration, detailed description about this, which he has put, which he has completed in 1950 only. And it is there in Savitri in its Kanto. So we'll take a look at this, that what he has stated and how he has described it in book 2, Kanto 1 and page 100. This is all appearing. So these are the Kanto 1 saying that a conscious was fill the old dumb road space. So we'll just take a look at what he's talking about, because this since we have a time limitations. So Sri Aurobindo has described the mysterious event happening at the origin of the universe that begin with an explosion or the Big Bang. So that is explained in this light, in this line, that is a growing epitome of eternity. A little point reveals the infinity. So this describes this, that it began with an explosion, that is the Big Bang. The infinite eternal divine is seen as a singularity. So what is singularity? It is the infinite eternal divine. It is not the point what as they understand or the science understand, but this singularity is nothing but the infinite eternal divine, which is, and it is an absolute fullness in which there can be no gaps or holes. So this is, the singularity is something like an absolute fullness. There is no gaps or holes in it. And this infinite is the point of absolute density and the point that is of the infinite of absolute density. So this is the text. This is the writing of Sri Aurobindo in Savitri, Canto 1. And this explains that what is the point of singularity and how from that, after the Big Bang, it has come out creating the universe. Then in the next lines, the last two lines, a gas flashed out from the some invisible fire. So here he has described that how it has happened actually. So he describes that it is the Agni, the mystic fire of Vedas, which is him as the upbuilder of the words, the agent of creation, which is which has created this universe. The Agni is the fiery principle in Vedas, and it is the three power, that is radiant, electric, and gaseous. It is the basis of these forms. The Agni is the one which produces all liquid solid forms of the matter. So these are the lines where Sri Aurobindo describes that how Agni creates this entire world. In these lines, Sri mentions that there is a strange and an anomalous. So for creating this event to take place, there has to be a base. There has for the explosion or appearance of the material universe. So here he is describing that this mystery process in the universe at first was laid a strange and anomalous base. The void cipher of some secret hole where zero and infinity in its sum, and all and nothing were a single term, an eternal negative a matrix law. So here is describing the anomalous base created. So he is giving us he is even revealing about this void that is named the indescribable, making the appearance of the matter possible, a void that needs to be created in the universe. So for creation of or the expansion or the Big Bang to happen, there has to be some void that need to be created. And this need to be created in the infinite fullness to make the place of material universe. So he further discusses this word is not an emptiness or nothing. It is the cipher of some secret whole, that is the divine consciousness, a void held infinity in its totality, and this process has happened more than once. So he also says that this process, that is the creation of the universe, has happened more than once, and we are aware from our traditional knowledge that this is the sixth times it has happened, and today we are in the seventh creation. So this is how integral yoga and Sri Aurobindo has given these details about how the universe was created much before the Big Bang. So we will summarize this that how the creation of the universe has happened. The process. So this during the creation, the four emanations came out from the divine. They got separated. They came down to the vital level and got into the inconscient and turned into their opposites. The first emanation was the consciousness. It goes into inconscient to become unconscious. The second one was the bliss and it turned into suffering. The third was the truth that turned into falsehood. And the fourth was the lie that turned into death. So these four emanations happened. And since it got ultimately merged or get or disappeared inside the unconscious, the need was felt to send the second emanation, that is God, which came out. They came out and stayed at its overmind level, coming frequently or sometimes into this world, taking the avatars or some vibhutis and doing their work to bring out this. And the third emission which happened is the souls, which are nothing but the tiny sparks which are there residing inside each and every one of us, which we call soul, and say in the call is that the psychic being when it gets evolved, that is evolving psychic, evolving soul. And these are the ones which will be contributing now for the further evolution and making the divine life possible, which was the purpose of this entire manifestation. So this has been illustrated here that how this happens actually. So from the Brahman consciousness, we got the first level of emanations, Satchidananda going inside the inconscient, and because they got lost, this we have to have the second level which stayed at the level of our mind, which is the plane of God, and then we have the plane of sages, vibhutis, saints. We have the then further to that we have the individual soul, which was the third dimension, staying at the inside in the psychic world, and then coming and taking birth on the material plane. And in the process of Big Bang, what we saw actually, there was universe was created, and then this entire manifestation happened, and then the souls get take the birth, and now through the inconscient we are getting involved, and through this our evolution, or when we connect with the supermind can get the light of Satchidananda on inside us and through us on this material plane, so that then it can be transformed. So this is the whole game of the creation, the manifestation of the consciousness, what is described and given in the integral yoga. So with this, we come to end of our today's session, and I will leave it to forum for if they have any questions and or want to know more about